Good evening, ghouls and ghosts, and welcome to Toy Box Nostalgia. Tonight's feature will be the very last feature of our October celebration for 2023. That is right, my frightful fiends, it is Halloween! And what better way to celebrate such a spectacularly spooky night than to have an evil guest provide you with a spooky fireside story. One that will slime you to the gills. So before we begin and we allow our guest to provide the entertainment, make sure that you have your s'mores ready, or something maybe a little more delicious to snack on, such as brains. And make sure you pour yourself a nice tall glass of slime. So without further ado, my friends, let's have our special guest join us for the fireside story.
You slimy little pipsqueaks! In tonight's episode, we're going to be taking a ride into the past! That's right, I brought something from my past. Do you remember 1986? 'Cause I sure do. I got my ass handed to me by He-Man in 1986. Also in 1986, a company called Kid Stuff made this Deluxe Talking Story Book. This one so happens to be called Masters of the Universe, Prisoner in the Slime Pit. So let's go ahead and take this out of the stupid bag. Alright, with that out of the way, we have yet another stupid bag. Why in blazes is this stupid thing in a bag in the first place? Oh, whatever. I'll leave the unboxing up to you, you stupid earthling! First, I have to say I appreciate you allowing me to be part of tonight's entertainment. So have fun with my storybook, and get out of my face!
Okay, thank you very much, Skeletor. So here what we have is the fully packaged Deluxe Talking Story Book from Kid Stuff. This is from 1986, at least it says so on the cassette tape there, and hopefully there's copyright information on the inside of the book that we could check later. But taking a look at this packaging, this is from 1986. This is how it came off of the pegs in the stores, like Hills and Ames and stuff. So it was just hanging on pegs, right? And back when I was a kid, I had a bunch of these tapes, and I also had records. So as you see here under Kid Stuff, it says records and tapes. That is because this company also made these storybooks with actual small records inside of them. Okay, so taking a look at the packaging, let's look at the top here. This is a piece of cardboard that's folded over top of the book. It's inserted into the book, and the cassette tape is actually inserted into the piece of cardboard. So on the front here we have a beautifully illustrated full-color storybook. Over here, this has some torn stuff, but I believe it says the same exact thing on the back. A delightful, entertaining way to encourage children to read. Look at that cassette tape. It's bright yellow, and it's got like blood red color on it for the print. Looks very, very cool. It says Masters of these. Looks super retro. It says Masters of the Universe, Prisoner in the Slime Pit. It says Kid Stuff over here. We got a bunch of copyright information and which side the tape is on, 1 or 2. So you see here side 1 and over here side 2. This is a cassette player. We're going to be listening to this cassette live together and going through this nice little story. Okay, so enough with the packaging. I'm actually considering cutting this from the bottom. I don't see, there's no place for me to tear up. This is sealed. This is mint in package sealed. And as you see here, it's kind of melted together. So what I'm going to do is cut Probably cut from the bottom. But I'd like to store it in the bag also. Actually, I'm going to cut it from the top. All right. From the top. Here we go. Nice and easy. Let's get this thing out of here. Air is coming out of here that was placed in this package in the 80s. I'm just kidding, I don't think that was airtight, but okay. So this is how the books came, with the tape and the cardboard, right? Like I said, this part is just an insert, just comes out, and we have our storybook here. Very nice. Let's take a look at copyright information. We do see it says 1986. Masters of the Universe and associated characters are trademarks owned and used by license from Mattel Incorporated. So Kid Stuff got the license for Masters of the Universe and made these books. These books were a big hit in the 1980s. Okay, so taking a look at the cassette tape. Looks like you're just going to slide it out of there. See those two little pieces of cardboard inside there? And these pieces of cardboard went up inside the tape, but did not hurt the tape too much. It hurt it a little bit, but not too much. Okay, I'm back. I had to use a pen for my wife to fit in there to grab those. The paintbrush didn't work, but I got it to a place where the magnetic tape is completely clear of those wrinkles, and hoping that those over time actually just come out. But all right, let's just dive right into it, right?
Hi, everybody. This is your Masters of the Universe read-along book. Every time you hear the chime, it means it's time to turn the page in your storybook. Now, if you are ready, we will start the story, Prisoner in the Slime Pit. Don't forget to turn the page every time you hear the chime. Okay, here we go. The Slime Pit. Hidden away in a lost region of Etheria, this ancient site is one of the most feared on all the planet. Resting on a jagged stone base, the massive archway holds a frightening skull head. When an unsuspecting passerby crosses near the arch, a fearsome claw grabs him by surprise and holds him tight. Then the skull opens its mouth wide, and from between its jagged teeth comes thick green slime. It coats the trapped warrior and makes him unable to move. If the warrior is trapped too long in the slime pit, he is turned into a slime monster. A creature with no will, a creature who is forced to follow the will of Hordak, the leader of the evil horde and the ruler of this evil tract. In his dark chamber, Hordak cracked a cruel smile as he thought to himself,
"The one man who has always escaped from me in the past is the one man I would most like to trap in the slime pit. Beware, He-Man. I'm not done with you yet. I've got a plan which will bring you to the slime pit. 2 of my horde troopers have been sent to steal the great book of wisdom from the library of Castle Grayskull. No doubt, He-Man, you will want this priceless treasure returned. and you will have to come to me to get it. My Horde troopers will leave an easy trail for you to follow, He-Man. A trail which will lead you into the slime pit.
Meanwhile, on Eternia, a cold gust of wind blew the curtains at the windows of Castle Grayskull. He-Man walked to one window and looked out. Behind him stood Rockon and Stondar, two heroic Comet warriors. These brave fighters had recently come to Eternia to help He-Man in his struggle against the evil forces on the planet. Seeing He-Man's frown, Stondar spoke first.
What's wrong, He-Man? You look worried.
He-Man turned to face his friends and answered,
I've just learned there's been a robbery here at Castle Grayskull, right under my nose. A valuable ancient book, filled with history and mystical secrets, has been taken from the library. Man-at-Arms followed the trail of two sets of heavy footprints. They have been identified as prints of the Horde troopers.
Where did the footprints lead?
asked Rockon.
To a field nearby,
Explained He-Man.
and then they vanished. The troopers must have stolen the book, then returned to Etheria through a space portal.
What are we waiting for?
Shouted Rockon.
We can find that portal.
I don't know what I'd do without you two guys.
Exclaimed He-Man.
Come on! We're off to Etheria to pay Hordak a little visit.
Once He-Man and his friends arrived on Etheria, Hordak's spies told their evil leader of He-Man's approach. Hordak was pleased at the news, and he shouted to a platoon of Horde troopers.
The plan is working. The trail our Horde troopers left will be easy for He-Man to follow. He'll follow it to the slime pit, where we'll be waiting for him. If he wants the Book of Wisdom back, he'll have to pay a price. A slimy price!
As He-Man followed the trail that would eventually lead him and his friends to the slime pit, he warned Rockon and Stondar.
Be on the lookout for traps. That's Hordak's trademark. Tricks, traps, and treachery. There are hidden dangers everywhere. I don't even trust this trail. It's too easy to follow, and it seems to be leading into a dark region. Be careful.
As night drew closer, the little light that was left began fading away. He-Man and his friends were on a road which led to danger. By nightfall, Hordak's Horde troopers had taken up their positions in the rocks that surrounded the slime pit. Hordak waited alone at the edge of the pit. He knew that He-Man would wait until dawn to show himself. Eyeing the slime pit proudly, Hordak thought,
What a magnificent creation! Once my Horde troopers have overpowered He-Man, he will be a prisoner in the slime pit. He-Man will go first. His rock-brained friends will have to wait their turn. What a delight it will be to watch the mighty He-Man change into a slime monster!
That night, He-Man and the brave Comet warriors made camp. By the glow of a bonfire, the three planned for the day to come. He-Man spoke first.
I'm sure Hordak won't be alone tomorrow. We'll have to be on our toes. A surprise attack could put us in danger.
Rockon and Stondar agreed with He-Man.
I'm sure you're right, He-Man.
Said Rockon.
But we'll be ready for Hordak and his friends.
The brave warriors might have turned back if they had known how great a danger lay ahead. They were ready to fight Hordak and a dozen Horde troopers. But this time, Hordak had brought more, many more. Even He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe, was no match for Hordak and a whole platoon of Horde troopers. That night, as he slept, He-Man had a terrible dream. He was trapped and could not move. He was Hordak's prisoner in the slime pit. The harder he struggled, the deeper he sank into the cold, thick slime. He awoke in a sweat and looked around. It was dawn. Rakan and Stondar were already awake. Because they drew their energy from within their rocky bodies, the two Comet Warriors needed little sleep.
What a nightmare!
Shouted He-Man.
I dreamed Hordak captured me and put me in the slime pit.
We'll have to make sure the dream doesn't come true today,
answered Rakan. He-Man's nightmare was closer to coming true than he knew. For even as he slept, Hordak was giving his Horde troopers their orders.
Take your places around He-Man's camp. Do not attack or fight. And if you are spotted, treat He-Man and those pebble heads with all the courtesy they deserve. Tell him I only borrowed the Book of Wisdom, sort of a lending library. If it's overdue, he'll have to come to me to get it. And he'll have to pay the charges!
It didn't take He-Man and his friends long to spot a Horde trooper as he approached the camp, for his silver armor glistened in the pale morning sun. The trooper held up his hand and spoke.
He-Man, Hordak sends his greetings. He has asked that we escort you to him.
He-Man's first instinct was to fight the evil Horde trooper. Then he looked around. This trooper was not alone. On the crest of every hill, shoulder to shoulder as far as he could see, stood hundreds of Horde troopers. He-Man knew at once that he and his friends were surrounded and outnumbered.
Looks like I've got quite an escort,
he said.
Why the courtesy, metalhead? Has Hordak sent you boys to charm school?
Unsmiling, the Horde trooper answered.
Hordak is a leader of peace. He feels that the time has come to put down the sword.
If Hordak is a man of peace, then I'm Orko's uncle,
said He-Man, laughing.
You'll see,
said the Horde trooper.
Besides, you have little choice.
He-Man knew that the Horde trooper was right. It had been a bad move to camp so close to the slime pit. Even though Rakan and Stondar had been awake all night, the darkness hid the Horde trooper's arrival. Completely surrounded now, He-Man and his companions were escorted to Hordak, who waited near the slime pit, dressed in his finest armor.
Hordak is up to something,
whispered Stondar to Rakan.
But we have powers even Hordak doesn't know about,
answered Rakan.
Welcome, He-Man,
Hordak called out.
We have been enemies too long. I read your Book of Wisdom and found it most interesting. It's time we stopped this fighting. Come to me now and shake my hand.
He-Man could see that the path to Hordak would lead him directly into the slime pit. So he stopped and called back.
You are the one who starts the fights around here, Hordak.
How you misunderstand me,
said Hordak in a hurt voice.
I want peace. It is time.
You mean slime!
Shouted He-Man as he ran clear of Hordak's guards.
Seize him! Seize him!
Screamed Hordak in unmasked fury.
I grow tired of talking peace. It sickens me. He-Man, you look dusty from your travels. You could use a bath. A nice long bath in the slime pit.
Although He-Man struggled, it was no use. He was overpowered by more than 24 Horde troopers. Even the strongest man in the universe couldn't beat them all. They dragged him toward the slime pit. Within seconds, he felt the giant claw seize him. Over his head, the skull grinned as its mouth ran over with horrible slime. He-Man closed his eyes as globs of the thick ooze landed on his head, then flowed over his shoulders and chest. Oozing down to the ground, the cold slime was soon up to his knees. He-Man's nightmare had come true. He was truly a prisoner in the slime pit. Hordak laughed and shouted at his helpless prisoner.
Now I've got you where I've always wanted you, He-Man. Though you struggling, the slime will drain your willpower and put you completely under my control. Then I'll make you another of my slime monsters. I could use another one, especially one as strong as you. And with you out of the picture, my life will be much simpler.
Meanwhile, Rockon and Stondar were making plans to rescue He-Man. They realized it was now or never. In the next instant, they made their move. Before the Horde troopers could stop them, they transformed themselves into masses of rock and began rolling forward through the troopers and directly toward He-Man in the slime pit. To avoid being crushed, the Horde troopers jumped out of the way as Rockon and Stondar thundered along. The Comet Warriors cleared a path through the enemy. The moment they reached the slime pit, they changed once more from Comet to Warrior. Grabbing He-Man in their mighty arms, they pulled him free of the slime pit.
Stop them!
Shouted Hordak as he stood by the edge of the pit. Wiping the slime from his eyes, He-Man lunged toward Hordak, shouting,
Here, Hordak! Why not take a dip in your own pool?
In that instant, He-Man gave Hordak a shove. The mighty Horde ruler lost his balance and tumbled face first into the pit of slime. Hordak was furious as he shouted to his troopers,
Capture them!
Then, waving his arms in a rage, he pointed at He-Man and vowed,
You won't get away with this, He-Man! Ugh, this stuff is disgusting.
Before Hordak's troops could react, Rockon and Stondar transformed once again into stone and began rolling back through Hordak's army, clearing the way for He-Man. Grabbing the Book of Wisdom from the ground where Hordak had dropped it, He-Man hurried to his friends. Soon they were away from the Horde troopers and on the road to safety.
Blast!
Shouted Hordak.
He-Man has escaped me again. You idiot Horde troopers will pay for this.
A short while later, a safe distance away, He-Man, Rockon, and Stondar stopped to rest.
You know, Hordak was right about one thing.
Said He-Man with a smile.
What's that?
Asked Rockon. He-Man's answer made them all laugh.
I really could use a bath.
Well, my friends, I hope that you enjoyed our final episode, which wrapped up the 2023 season of the Spooky Toy Box. The show that allowed us all to embrace the spell cast upon all of us as children by toy manufacturers, cartoon story writers, artists, you name it. That spell is nostalgia. If you haven't figured that out yet, pretty sure that you have. Speaking of nostalgia, how good was this story, right? So spooky. Especially when I was 1986, I was 6 years old. I was spooked. I was scared, right? This is so cool to have this again. One thing I gotta say is to just never fear. We're gonna have a lot of other spooky toys to unbox for the rest of the year. It's okay. I take toy photographs of a lot of spooky stuff. Most of my nostalgia comes from spooky toys that are like on my shelves and packed up ready to be unboxed with you, my friends. Those videos just won't be as complicated, I guess, as this. These videos took a long time to edit and get how I wanted them, essentially. So please, if you like the content of this video, please consider hitting that thumbs up button. It really helps me out. And drop a comment below letting me know if this was your first time listening to a cassette tape, or if you really are here for the nostalgia and, you know, you had this when you were a kid. Let me know. Let's start a conversation about this story. What did you think of the storyline? So cool, right? How did they create a storyline that was so rich but ended so fast? It was like, what, like 30 minutes-ish? So thank you so much for sticking to the end, my friends. I wish you all a spooky and happy Halloween. And never forget, my friends, collect and shoot. How in the f*** am I gonna film this?
Whatever.
I don't want to be in here.
It's too late, you are.